Hi, and welcome to NT303, Advanced Network Infrastructure. My name is Brian Orr, and I will be your professor this term. I just want to take a couple minutes just to highlight some of the more important items here related to our course, and hopefully doing so will answer any questions you might have. But at this point, I'm assuming all of you are very likely familiar with Canvas and the Canvas course layout. You should have gone through some initial training on Canvas and stuff, and then you very likely have taken a course or two with that was using Canvas. So I'm going to assume you're familiar with the overall layout. Just to mention a couple of things, I find it, when I'm just looking to go to a particular assignment real quick, I find that getting to it through the syllabus is pretty handy. Of course, you always want to go through your modules each week and make sure that in week one that you start out here in the top section and go through those modules. So you'll click on Introduction to Course and look over all this stuff and click Next to move to the next slide and so on. Then each week you'll come in and you'll start out with the module for whatever week you're in. So Unit 1, you'll start out with that module in week 1, and so you'll want to start out on this first slide and then just go through all the slides for that unit, and there'll be some embedded videos and stuff, so make sure that you go through those modules. That's, I guess, the only other important thing I want to mention here is make sure you look over the announcements section. There'll be several announcements here. Right now you can see the welcome announcement to NT303. The late policy, I want to make sure that everyone is very familiar with this. You want to read over this. Notice that the student must request approval from the instructor to submit makeup work, and this request must come prior to the due date. So, if you send me an email Sunday afternoon and tell me you're having trouble with your technology, whatever it is, whether your computer died on you or whatever the case, that's not going to be acceptable. So you want to make sure that you are communicating with me, and if you run into any issues that may affect submitting your assignment on time, you want to make sure you reach out to me. Now, keep in mind that I may deny the request if the reason isn't valid. You definitely have to have a valid reason for submitting any work late. And also keep in mind that I may ask for documentation. And all of this is not to be tough on you or anything. It's just that I have to explain to my supervisor why I have allowed you to turn something in late. And so, so I may require some documentation to back up my position on that with my supervisor. So, if you are given permission to submit anything late, keep in mind you only have 7 calendar days to get it in. After that, it will not be accepted. So basically, the bottom line here is get your work turned in on time. But if you do have an emergency, or if you're in the military and you're going to be in a situation where you're not going to have access to your computer for a week or something, obviously I'll work with you on that. So, but again, you just need to reach out to me ahead of time. Pretty much as soon as you are aware of something, that's when you want to reach out to me. Okay, so that's about all I'm going to go over here in Canvas. Again, you'll want to look everything over just a little more closely, but the next thing I want to talk about is NetLab. If you have used NetLab for the other courses that cover Windows Server, which are NT 181 and NT 201, then you're familiar with the procedures here as well. But I do want to kind of show you the process. Keep in mind your menu will look a little different from mine since I'm an instructor, but when you want to go in and schedule a lab, you need to make sure you look for NT 303 Advanced Network Infrastructure Online. You'll click on that. In there you'll see there are actually two different pods, two different NetLab pods. So you want to make sure you're going into the right one, and your lab instructions will let you know, particularly if you need to go into one of the Hyper-V labs. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you're using the correct one. I'm going to go into the top one here, just the Windows Server 2016, and show you what that looks like. Okay, so at this point I'm just going to schedule a reservation for right now, and I'll just leave it at the default. Submit. Okay, so my reservation's active, and I was able to click on the Enter Lab button there. And it's going to take a few minutes here to initialize the pod. I'm going to just pause the video and wait for the pod to come up, and when that does, I will start the video back. Well, actually it came up pretty quick, maybe because there are no students in right now. So no need to stop the video. Here's the topology for this pod, and essentially what we're going to be focused on here in this course are the servers. Okay, so you see you have server DC1, server DM1, server DM2, and server SA1. These servers match the names of the servers in the lab instructions in your textbook, and that's where your labs are. It's the activities in the textbook. And so if you come into the pod and you see your lab has different server names, then that means you're not in the correct pod. So if your lab has you using server DC1 and server DM1 and server DM2 and server SA1, then you know you're in the right pod. But if your lab has you using a virtual machine, named something different, then you've gone into the wrong pod and you need to get out and go to the other one. Okay, so in this environment, you can see one thing, and I see this has not been updated. Of course, this would be Canvas, not Blackboard, here on the content. But again, your lab instructions, the activities are in the textbook. So basically, anywhere you see Blackboard here, just substitute Canvas in there for that. Okay, so clicking back on the topology button brings us back here. Notice that we have the servers up top here, so we can click on the drop down and notice that it brings us to the desktop on that server, and click on Control-Alt-Delete. And the default administrator password for any of the servers is password 01 with a capital P, and so you can just type that in and log in. So at this point I'm at the desktop of server DC1. Okay, and keep in mind these are real machines, that you're connecting to there in the lab. So if I want to go back to the topology, I can click on the topology tab there, and then I can come back to other servers. You can also click on the servers themselves, and here this is a server core machine. Click on server SA1 here, and notice it brings you to the desktop, and you just have to click up here to get your Control-Alt-Delete. So I think that's pretty much it. Again, I think most of you are probably very familiar with with this setup in NetLab. You know, the server infrastructure may look a little different or whatever, but processes are all the same. You complete the activities that are assigned in the textbook. You get your appropriate screenshots, and then you're done. And speaking of screenshots, let me go back to Canvas real quick and point this out to you. All of your assignments, so let's look at the Unit 1 assignment. All of your assignments have your instructions. They tell you which activities to complete, and they tell you, where to get screenshots. One of the things that you want to do is you want to make sure that you open up this Unit 1 lab guide with examples. The Unit 1 lab guide itself here, this is, you can actually use this one. I'll open that up real quick first. You can actually use this one to, to paste your screenshots into. And this way, by doing this, it'll be very well organized and everything. So what you can do is like, here in activity 1-2, this is where you need to get your first screenshot. Says during step number 19, get a screenshot of the server manager, blah, blah, blah. So what you can do is just click here at the end, make sure your document's enabled for editing. Click here at the end here, hit enter, and backspace over the bullet point, and hit backspace again a couple of times to get out to the left. And at that point, what you can do is insert your screenshot there. So if you've saved your screenshot, then you can just go to insert pictures and pick the right one. Or if you've just if you're doing this as you go, which I suggest you do, you can just use the snipping tool in Windows and get your screenshot and copy that, and then just right click and paste it here into your document. So by doing this, by pasting in the screenshots at each point where you're asked to get one, that way you'll know that your assignment is organized, and that I can clearly see what activity each screenshot is for. Please make sure, however you do it, whether you use this worksheet or not, make sure that your screenshots are labeled and organized. If you send me a document with just a bunch of screenshots and you don't tell me what's what and they're all out of order, I'm just going to give you a 0 and tell you that that you need to follow the assignment instructions and organize your document better. So, okay, so that's the lab guide. But the main thing I want to point out here is the lab guide with examples. If you open those up for each assignment, what you will find is the same activities and instructions, but you will find a screenshot pasted in. So essentially this looks exactly like what your assignment should look like, except you're not going to have these watermarks on here that say do not copy. Okay, so so you can come to this document. I'm going to blow this up just a little bit so you can see a little better. And so you can come into this document and you can look and see, okay, this is exactly what my screenshot needs to look like. So, and that way you know that you're getting exactly what you're supposed to. And as you just scroll through the assignment, again, you're going to see all of the an example of all the required screenshots. So you want to make sure that your screenshots look exactly like the examples that are provided. If you give me something different, I may or may not give you credit for it. If it's a little different, but I can see that you did what was required, then I might just count off a couple of points for for just not matching the example exactly. But if I can't tell that you by what you submitted that you successfully completed that step, then you won't get credit for that screenshot. So best thing to do is just to make sure your screenshots look exactly like the examples that are provided for you in every assignment. Okay, so that's about all I wanted to go over. If you have any questions at any point, just be sure to contact me via Canvas messaging or Herzing email, and I will get back to you. But that's about it. I look forward to working with each of you this term. Thanks.